Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to do a PLE recap. This time it is Crown Jewel, just happening last night on October 11th in Perth, Australia, to just over the tune of 13,000 fans. And honestly, it sounded like 50,000. This crowd was great, as are most international crowds. I live in the States, but honestly, put all PLEs internationally until the US is more appreciative of them. Just everything is more enjoyable when you have a crowd like this, and I think every match is better off for it. So, with that, let's go ahead and get into what led off the evening, and that is, of course, Bronson Reed and Roman Reigns, the tribal chief up against the tribal thief. KP, quite a few talking points here, and we kind of went over this in the predictions video about the two Australian talents winning. Surely they wouldn't have done that. But I think definitely more shocking of the two would be to have Bronson Reed get a win over Roman Reigns. But that is, in fact, what happened here. Granted, with an asterisk, but most things these days with division do typically have them. But what'd you make of this opening contest of Crown Jewel, KP?
Yeah, I mean, first things first, the big talking point, Roman Reigns losing to Bronson Reed. Bronson becomes only the second man in 6 years to pin Roman in a one-on-one matchup, which is quite the statistic there. You know, him and Cody Rhodes, that is a very exclusive club. You got to go back all the way to 2019, where Baron Corbin was the third most recent person to do that. So yeah, it's a long time that he goes without being pinned in one-on-one matches. But like you said, asterisks, a big one, can be applied to this matchup because it had a whole lot going on. It's an Australian street fight. You know, there are no disqualifications. Anything can happen. And pretty much that's essentially what we got. He gets to a point where Roman, who's in control, he sizes up Bronson Reed for a spear at ringside. And then we just get Bron Breakker just completely just appearing out of nowhere, as if he almost just sort of like teleported in midair and just spears Roman Reigns instead. He comes across the barricade, but the way he did it was so fast. It just looked like he just spawned in midair. It was fantastic. What a way to just insert yourself into the contest. So he comes in, makes a nuisance of himself, and Bron and Bronson put Reigns through the announce table moments later with a Shield style power bomb. And that sort of brings the Usos down. They come on down to aid Roman Reigns. The Usos do though get overthrown in well at even though their best efforts, and Jimmy does eventually get speared through the barricade at ringside by Bron Breakker. That leads to Roman and Bronson in the ring. Bronson looks to put Roman Reigns through a table, which is set up in the corner, and Roman ends up sort of like staggered against the table at one point. You got Jey Uso, he's looking to spear Bronson Reed, but instead of hitting Reed, he hits Roman and spears Roman right through the table. Bron Breakker, he's around the situation. He spears Jey Uso right afterwards, and with Jimmy and Jey completely dealt with, it leaves Bronson Reed, with a perfect opportunity, drags Roman Reigns into position and hits a tsunami, and that would be the 1, 2, 3 for Bronson Reed. So yeah, this was a really chaotic contest. That's just sort of like the key sort of moments there that took place towards the late stages, and yeah, that's it was an interesting dynamic. I think you expect sort of chaos and carnage. That's essentially what we got here during this matchup. Um, yeah, this it was a bit of a surprise. I thought that Roman was going to win, and I think I'm pretty sure you predicted Bronson Reed getting the win. Um, but yeah, I didn't really see this coming. It was quite surprising to me, but it was a whole lot of fun. It was entertaining. There was there was so much to cover, and yeah, we have a little bit of drama with the Usos and Roman Reigns. Which there's a bit of a post match segment where Reigns is sort of like sat in the ring with the Usos, completely like like out of it. They're trying to get back up onto like their knees and whatever. And Roman, he's clearly very upset with them, very furious, and he says like he loves them both, but he doesn't want to see them until Christmas. So I did pick out that little bit of a conversation between the three men there. But yeah, it was a fun match. What a way to kick things off. The crowd really did not like Bronson Reed. They gave him a bit of they gave him a bit of a pop to begin with, like right at the very early stages when he made his entrance. But then afterwards, it was boos throughout the whole contest, cheering Roman Reigns. And yeah, it was very much the Aussies were not particularly hoping that Bronson Reed would pick up the win here, but he did in the end. And what a way to shoot him further up, the pecking order in WWE on Monday Night Raw, with a massive win over Roman Reigns. Not many people can say they've pinned Roman in a one-on-one match. Bronson joins that club, very exclusive recently. But yeah, his stock continues to rise. They're building a star out of Bronson Reed. And I hope they really do sort of like continue going with this. It's great for him. It's doing him wonders. So yeah, excited to see where they take this next. But there's a whole lot of drama with the with Roman and the Usos, that's for sure. What did you make of our opening contest, Nick? I gave this one an 8 out of 10 personally. I thought it was very fun. But how did you rate it?
Yeah, chaos, carnage, drama, and comedy. That I don't want to see you until Christmas line got a good chuckle out of me as well. Kind of mentioned this on the predictions video too, where I was kind of curious where the heel face dynamic would come in with Roman and Bronson. Obviously, Bronson being the local guy, but honestly, had you not known who was from where, you'd think probably Roman was a local talent. Roman getting absolutely, absolutely adored by the crowd here, and Bronson getting some pretty gnarly chants from the local Australian crowd, which we've made it quite clear from night one. They are not shy about putting their feelings out there. And Roman, this whole pace of this match was a bit different. Roman, obviously, matches are tend to be a little bit slower, but he was just out there living his best life, playing to the crowd, doing the cricket, and all of that. I've never quite seen him even grab the mic at one point, telling him, yeah, I think he said, "Acknowledge me," or before I use this bat or something along the lines of that. Wasn't super groundbreaking, but just the fact that he grabbed the mic during a match is, yeah, he was having a ton of fun. But yeah, alas, Jay and Jimmy getting coming into play as we knew they would, as would Broad Breaker, and or at least had a good feeling they would. Uh, but Braun Breaker kind of getting the assist there, and Jimmy and Jay costing essentially the match with the spear. Yeah, I think that kind of does a bunch of things. A, that gives you Bronson Reed the big match win over Roman Reigns as PLE. I think that's great. And then obviously Jay and Jimmy and Roman continues that whole storyline, which I think that's kind of the bump it needed. So I think clearly we're far from done from that. So I think it kind of just hits all the right notes, gets Bronson that big win, and then continues the drama with the Usos and Roman. So yeah, I think this checked all the right boxes and was a great contest to kick off the show. I too gave it an 8 out of 10. Getting into the next match, we have Stephanie Vaquer, the Women's World Champion, going up against Tiffany Stratton, the WWE Women's Champion, in a champion versus champion match for that Crown Jewel Championship. Uh, Cole and Wade were both really hyping up both of these women before and at the beginning of this match. And honestly, this was one of the matches, in terms of build, I think you could say, you know, take out the Styles Cena match, which literally had no build. This was probably the worst build going into it, just because it's two faces, obviously, but yeah, it doesn't make for a great build in terms of press conference or their standoffs they had before. They were tagging together the night before, for goodness sakes. But yeah, I think a couple times we see Stephanie kind of avoid being a complete face here. We obviously see Tiffany reach out for that handshake after the match begins, and Stephanie's not really having any of it. So she's certainly, I think, the more heelish role, or at least no nonsense, if you will. Whereas Tiffany was trying to pull off that full baby face, or maybe she, who knows what her intentions were either. We see that play out quite a bit. But yeah, KP, what'd you make of this match? Obviously, two with women, top of their respective divisions. What'd you make of it?
So, to no surprise to anyone, this match was good, but I feel like that's essentially where you can sort of like leave the description, because it was just good. It wasn't like anything spectacular. It wasn't bad, but yeah, it didn't really sort of like steal the show or anything, or like threaten to do so. Which I think these two ladies are very much capable of putting on a much better contest than what we did see from this particular match. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit too short, I think is fair to say. It was it wasn't the best, let's put it that way. But like, I feel like if you gave these girls another like 7 or 8 minutes, it probably would have been a really good matchup. It probably would have had like a really good flow to it. And it did have a decent flow. It was back and forth, it was very competitive. It was what you basically wanted from champion versus champion matchup. But I think in terms of the foundations, it hit that and it did the basics really well, but it didn't really offer anything else. And you could say, like you mentioned, it was very much a face versus face matchup, and there was no sort of like added element. There was no heated rivalry between the two women. It was a matter of respect, showing who's the better woman. And at the end of the day, Stephanie Vaquer wins, and she looked good doing it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I just think that, yeah, in terms of something that's going to sort of you go back and watch, like, I don't know, like a few years down the line, it's not really that kind of match. Like, it's just a good match. There was nothing wrong with it. There was nothing truly spectacular. It was good, and that's fine. It is what it is. But there wasn't a big moment to take from this one, besides the fact that Stephanie Vaquer does win, and this rocket that she's on, and she's been propelled at, is continuing to go upwards and upwards in that trajectory, which is fine. That's great. We want to see that. We both predicted that we hope that would happen, and that is the case in this situation. So ultimately, that's a great result. But yeah, just it didn't really have like a big moment to it, which was a little bit of a shame. But I gave it a 7 out of 10. Like I said, nothing wrong with it, nothing bad, but just it was a good match between two women who did the very basics right, and it was just a decent regular matchup. That's essentially my way of describing it. Yeah, I mean, if you have more to offer on this one, Nick, then obviously please go ahead. But could you see it as being maybe more than a good match? Was there something I'm missing, or did it just do its job and that was what it was meant to do?
So I think the match was definitely shorter than it should have been. I think lots of matches got plenty of time, and I think this was just kind of the odd woman out, if you will. So I think that definitely played a part. But that being said, as far as what we got, um, it appears that I enjoyed this one a lot more. I kind of mentioned earlier, Cole and Wade were definitely hyping these both these women up, and so it felt like both women were very evenly matched, and there were some really hard hitting moments here. And both women, I felt like were looking really good. I thought this was one of Tiffany Stratton's better matches in a long time. Obviously, she's had some she's been put in the ring with some women who can't quite hold their own yet. I think that's kind of fair to say. A bit more green, if you will, but definitely hasn't been that woman to be able to carry someone else. Obviously, putting her in the match with someone like Vaquer, who hasn't had a ton of main roster matches, but even from that, I think if you aren't watching NXT, you can clearly see that Vaquer is a special talent. So with that, yeah, I think this was one of Stratton's best matches, and maybe it is just a matter of she's finally in the ring with someone who can hold their own. And with Vaquer getting to beat and kind of we mentioned it on the predictions video, Stratton having that undefeated 2025 so far. So now Vaquer has come onto the scene, beat Io Sky for that women's world championship, and then now beating Tiffany Stratton, breaking her streak for 2025, as you kind of alluded to, put that rocket on her. This woman is all of a sudden, a star born on the main roster just like that. So I think this was definitely the right call. And yeah, I just thought the match, it wasn't like groundbreaking or anything, and it didn't do anything, super unique. But I thought just for what it was pretty hard hitting and very back and forth. I don't think either woman looked weak here. And so yeah, great decision, to have Vaquer win, as we kind of hit on. But yeah, I give this one 8.5 out of 10. I just thought it was a ton of fun, albeit a bit short. But yeah, pretty hard hitting, I thought too. So with that, getting into a match that I know we won't have a disagreement on, and that is AJ Styles going up against John Cena in his fifth to last appearance. Just every time it gets harder and harder to see. And again, I'm not a huge John Cena guy, but can't deny what he's done for the business and this emotional roller coaster we've been taking on. I was curious to see this match for other than the obvious reasons. Because very close to the end, obviously, John Cena's retirement tour, but because I don't think I've ever seen so many uniform shirts in a crowd. And of course, I'm referring to those yellow John Cena shirts that he sold over the weekend. I maybe I'm exaggerating, but I don't feel like I am. It truly feels like 80% of the crowd is wearing those yellow John Cena shirts. And I know yellow stands out, so it's harder to see the ones that aren't. but there are a ton. So as if Cena wasn't well off already, he has hit it big this weekend in Australia. His last international appearance. For this retirement tour, if he does in fact stay retired. I know you never say never in professional wrestling, but I feel like out of all the people that have retired, John Cena is going to be that guy that officially does stay away, at least from an in-ring capacity. But that custom entrance, given John Cena gives Alicia here that hypes up AJ Styles, yeah, gave me goosebumps. From that to the crowd reaction of everything here, KP. I don't think I've ever seen so many tributes being paid in one match. Uh, you know, let us know what you thought of this and give us your highlights.
Yeah, I think to paraphrase, this was not the greatest wrestling match in the world. This is just a tribute. And this is exactly what this was from start to finish. These two guys, they weren't going out there to put on a technical masterpiece and, a clinical display. They went out there to A, have fun, B, to, just showcase the careers of essentially both men in this matchup. I thought it was going to be more John Cena just doing it himself. But Styles got involved as well and was running the years back himself with his views and rivalries and things. So that was amazing to see as well. It was essentially like, the past of WWE from John Cena and the past of AJ Styles of TNA, going one-on-one against each other. And just, it was a lot of fun to watch. It was really fun, very entertaining. And just noticing all of the individual sort of moments of paying homage as they sort of came on in. It was just awesome. It was great to watch. Really put a smile on my face throughout the matchup. And this was a match that seemingly just came out of nowhere. It wasn't announced on TV. It was some random evening or something, and it just happened to be announced on social media on X. And it was a match that the fans have been wanting in Cena's last year. Pretty much from the very beginning. They wanted to see Cena and Styles one last time. It's something we enjoyed their feud from a few years ago. It was fantastic, and getting an opportunity to run that back once more. Maybe they're not their clinical best they were back then, but they can still offer something special and fun. And that's exactly what we got. It was special. It was fun. And just the sort of names that John Cena and Styles went through here paying homage to. We had the likes of John Cena paying respect to The Miz, Rusev, Chris Jericho, Randy Orton, Bray Wyatt, and The Undertaker, as well as Styles, going back through the TNA sort of history with the likes of Sting, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and also then to Shawn Michaels as well. So, yeah, there was a whole lot in this matchup, and just generally speaking, from start to finish, it was just so engaging to watch. It was like a just a fun story being told in the ring, and you just sort of saw yourself just getting flashbacks to earlier moments in both of these men's career against their respective opponents that they're just showing tribute to. But yeah, there was so many near falls in this matchup, so many big moves hit. Just complete back and forth from start to finish, and it just put a smile on my face. Just what a great match it was. To think of this match, you compare it to John Cena's most recent PLE contest at WrestlePalooza, just chalk and cheese, just night and day difference. This is a match that was wanted by the fans. That match wasn't a match that was wanted by the fans. So at the end of the day, who's doing the better booking here? I think it's quite easy to say, that it is the fans. They know what they want. They know what's going to be best out of Cena's last few appearances. So, with that being said, 4 appearances left for John Cena. If I'm correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. I hope they're 4 good ones. Probably only really 2 more opponents for Cena on a PLE stage. I just hope they're good. I hope they're great ones to end on, because if John Cena had retired after this, I don't think anyone would really bat an eyelid or be upset, because this would have been an incredible match to end on. So I feel for those next 2 appearances, those next 2 PLEs and big moments, whatever. I hope they live up to something like this, or at least near to it. But that's going to be very, very hard. But I had a great time watching it. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It would have been perfect if it was more technical, but it didn't need to be. I know I could give it a 10, but I'm not going to. I'm sticking to my guns. 9 out of 10 is great, though. It was unbelievably fun to watch, and I had such a great time watching it as well. How high do you rate this one, Nick? This just really was fantastic, wasn't it? It was so much fun.
Yeah, you took a lot of my notes, as I'm sure I did yours with the intro, but there's just this, sometimes it's hard to separate, wrestling, you know, critique with just the entertainment critique. And that's what I feel like this is. It's just pure entertainment. You know, like I mentioned, got the goosebumps from the entrance intro from Alicia Taylor. Then I got the goosebumps when John Cena did the Sister Abigail, and the fireflies all came out. Like that was such a cool moment. Then seeing, paying tribute to all of the TNA guys and the WWE guys. Um, just truly insane. I did not have AJ Styles hitting a sweet chin music on my bucket list this year. So or on my bingo card. So was happy to cross that off. But yeah, interesting they didn't mention Sting there as well. When I believe that was AJ Styles hitting that Scorpion Death drop. So interesting they didn't do that. But yeah, this was just a moment. And honestly, I don't think a lot of people would compare it, but it gave me vibes of like a Rock Hogan at Mania, because they were just like, no, it wasn't the best match, but it was similar to that in that it was just a moment. You kind of gave me a bit of chills over here as well, just thinking this could have been the perfect kind of retirement match. I think both of these guys, obviously, we have, I think, a bit more of Styles here. You see Cena kind of holding Styles up. I think that's a great way, and that's just the Cena way, and it's why I kind of thought AJ Styles would get the win. Mentioning that in our predictions video, because Cena is just that kind of guy. But comparatively speaking, Cena's match here, along with the last one of WrestlePalooza, let's just go ahead and pretend that match of WrestlePalooza didn't exist. I think that's probably 90% of the world's thought process on that, anyways. It just doesn't vibe with the rest of this retirement tour. Even as a heel, Cena was just putting on good, or at least good matches, and that just wasn't that. But then going from that, obviously, night and day. Maybe that's why we love it so much. I think we would regardless. But yeah, this was just a very fun, entertaining, even if not technical, just one of those matches that we'll never forget. So with that, yeah, I think similar to you, my thought process usually is, I gave it a 9 out of 10, not because it wasn't memorable, because it just didn't have a ton of technical aspects to it. And again, that's just the wrestling purists in the both of us. That's what we tend to look for. So a great moment that it is, but a great technical wrestling match. I don't think you could really say that. So 9 out of 10 is still obviously great, but yeah. With that, let's go ahead and get into the next match. This is Asuka and Kairi Sane of the Kabuki Warriors going up against Rhea and Rhea Ripley. So going from the worst build to possibly the best build. Yeah, KP, this is one of those. I think we could sit here and debate who got the loudest pop of the night, Roman, Cena, or Rhea Ripley. I think that's a question that has to be answered before the night's over. So if not hearing your thoughts here, at least at the end. But let's go ahead and get into the actual match. KP, does this match live up to the build for you? Clearly, this was all about the hot tag to Rhea. And once we got that, kind of find myself, feeling like this match didn't quite live up to the expectations. And maybe that's on me, but I want to get your thoughts and opinions and ratings on this one.
So yeah, firstly, I would say that Rhea did get a massive pop here from the crowd, and you'd expect that, the Australian herself. I think to answer your question, I think Cena had the biggest reaction, I would say. That was just my personal opinion, though. I obviously not a decibel reader, but I think it was Cena if I was to say what I thought of it. But yeah, Rhea had a tremendous pop. As you would expect, it was fantastic. It was great for her, really good moment. And yeah, like you said, you touched over already. The match itself, very much led to Rhea Ripley getting that hot tag from Io Sky, and it had a lot building up to it at that point. Once that hot tag was made, yeah, it did sort of fizzle out a little bit, and it sort of slowed down, and it didn't really have that end product that you were hoping for on this one, as far as I was concerned. Anyway, it did underachieve a little bit. I wouldn't say it was a bad match by any means necessary. I thought it was still good, but very much like the Stephanie Vaquer and Tiffany Stratton contest, it was just a good tag team match. It was a good match, good contest between the four women. it didn't do anything particularly wrong, but it didn't do anything particularly great either. And it was just somewhere sort of like, it was a good match between the four women, but that was basically all it was. Um, like the whole Kairi, Sane, and Asuka dynamic, that's been obviously very interesting in the build up. Like you mentioned, the build was fantastic for this one. It was really, really great. And did the match live up to that build? I would argue probably not. We did see a little bit of Asuka and Kairi towards the late stages in terms of their particular dynamic between the two ladies. And Kairi saves Asuka, kind of, I guess you could say. That's how the commentators build it anyway. By tagging in, and she pushes Asuka away from Rhea Ripley, who ends up kicking Kairi to ringside instead of Asuka. But at this point, Kairi's the legal superstar. So she kicks Asuka into the. It looks like she kicks her into the ring post anyway. I'm not sure if she did connect with it. You couldn't see off because it was off camera, but it looked and appeared to be that Asuka kicks. Well, shoves Kairi. Kairi shoves Asuka into the ring post, then gets a kick from Ripley, sends her crashing to ringside as a result. Ripley goes in, goes out to ringside, grabs Kairi, pulls her back into the ring, and then hits a riptide, tags an EO who hits the over the moonsault, and that's the 1-2-3. So I'm not entirely sure what they were trying to do with the finish. It didn't really make a lot of sense. Why would Kairi tag in and then take the brunt of the offense? That doesn't make any sense. Was she really that desperate to sort of protect Asuka that she threw the match up as a result? I don't know. That's like maybe the only thing I can sort of like, try and cover this one up with. But yeah, in terms of the build leading into this one and how the match went down, it was a little bit underwhelming, and it was good, but it just didn't really have anything else to it. So that is a little bit of a shame for me. I think this one could have been really great, and it was one of our favorite builds, and probably if not our favorite going into the show. So yeah, there was a lot going into it, but yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe now we just see what happens with Asuka and Kairi. Maybe they have things to deal with themselves, or a little bit of miscommunication between the two ladies. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen going forward, but in terms of Rhea and EO, job done for them. They get the win, and this new sort of partnership that has been blossoming for a while now between the two ladies, I guess will continue to grow and to bud even more. So yeah, I mean, Rhea gets a win in Australia. The Aussie getting a big victory in a big moment. That's great for her. But yeah, unfortunately, the match just wasn't anything special, which is a shame. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Very much like Steph and Tiffany. It was good, but yeah, it's nothing particularly too outstanding with it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of the same kind of tune I'm going to sing. And that I thought this one, I didn't think this one was as good as the Vaquer and Stratton match. But if you look at the two comparatively speaking, um, they had no build whatsoever. This one had a ton of build. And so naturally, you want that blow off to be a bit better. And unfortunately, yeah, this one just didn't quite cut it. As for the Kairi Asuka bit, I felt like that was just Kairi kind of sacrificing herself for Asuka, and I'm sure it just seems like it's kind of paint by numbers, but I'm sure, Kairi's feeling good about herself for having done that. But I'm sure Asuka will then end up blaming Kairi for losing the match, and then we'll get that sympathetic stuff for Kairi, and then continue the heelish ways for Asuka. I'm sure that's where they're going with that, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And this is kind of why on the predictions video, I was very much of the opinion that having the Kabuki Warriors win here over EO would be one thing, but over Rhea would have been, just crazy momentum build for the Kabuki Warriors. But unfortunately, that's not the route they went. And even with the way Rhea kind of tagged in EO to let EO get the win, and then kind of showing off EO like, why wouldn't they let Rhea win? If they're going to let Rhea's team win, why not let Rhea win to get that one more pop from the crowd, who all obviously adore Rhea Ripley? So, yeah, just some interesting decisions here with this one. And like I said, and like you said, it wasn't a bad match. And it was obviously better than a weekly tag match that we would get on a weekly show. But as far as PLE and kind of just, I think these expectations we had for something kind of big to happen, it really just didn't. So, with the four competitors in ring, you just obviously have high expectations for it, and these didn't quite live up to it, unfortunately. Hopefully, we can continue the story and kind of make something a little better of it. To this point, I really don't have a clue where they're going with it. I think we'll, uh, you know, honestly, I don't. I just don't know. But in terms of what we got here, hopefully this isn't the end of the interactions with EO. But they got the better of the Kabuki Warriors tonight, and I think they could have done something a bit better with that. I gave this one a 7.5 out of 10, which probably seems high for the critique I'm giving it. But yeah, just didn't quite live up to it. With that, let's move on to the main event. Of course, Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes in the other Crown Jewel Championship match, and further to that, the fate of the division for Seth Rollins, essentially, because we see in a segment earlier in the evening, we see Paul tell Braun and Bronson to not assist, no matter how much he begs. So we need to figure out who the better competitor for. Who the better competitor here is once and for all. And of course, we then see Braun after Paul leaves the camera view. Braun asks Bronson, well, what if Seth doesn't win? Paul then comes back into the screen and says, I think you both, or something along the lines of, I think you both are smart enough to know what happens then. So continuing that intrigue to, what happens if Seth loses here? What happens to the division? So KP, main event here, the fourth contest between the two. Obviously, the fate of the division, at least that's what they're telling us, up in the air here. And Seth Rollins 3-0 or 0-3 streak finally coming to an end. But what did you make of the match? Do you think the right call was made here? And what was your rating for this one?
So, yeah, first and foremost, this was the correct result. I think there was so much on the line here for Seth, or it appeared to be anyway, with, the future of the division, with the complete sort of control that he has over, Monday Night Raw, just generally speaking. The severity of the situation, if Seth had lost, would have been quite something, and they would have had a real hole to dig themselves out of, because I don't think the division's done, not by any means necessary. There's still going to be a big thing going forward here for a long time for these guys. So just to end it right now, I think I said in the predictions video, I was very worried that if they had Cody win, which is a very highly likely possibility, then yeah, if they were having to follow through with, the build they've gone with, I feel like that was a really missed opportunity. So I'm glad that they didn't go down that route. I'm glad they had Cody take a loss for once, which was quite nice to see. Yeah, just Seth had everything going into it. He had all the sort of, big situation regarding this matchup, whereas Cody had really nothing to offer. It was just basically, he wanted a second ring, wanted to be the Crown Jewel champion once again, and that was essentially all it was. Pride this, pride that, blah blah blah. Boring Cody Rhodes once more. But when it comes to the matchup itself, it was okay. It was fine. It was a decent matchup. It was it's a good contest between both men. These two are, at the top of the division for a reason. Their in-ring, credibility is fantastic. They're both brilliant in the ropes. And they showed that throughout the matchup as well. There was it's very back and forth, very competitive. It gets to a part where, early in I guess like midway through the matchup, I want to say, Seth goes and brings the watch that Cody gave to him after the WrestleMania 40 matchup. That's at ringside, by the way. And he brings it into with him. He wraps it around his knuckle, sort of thing. And he sort of I don't know, argues with himself internally about whether he wants to use it at that point. He chooses not to in the end. He puts it onto onto the mat, but in the corner underneath the turnbuckles, and he leaves it for a while. The match goes on. They have a really good match still going forward here. Very competitive, back and forth. Like I said, doesn't really slow down. It's it's just back and forth for the whole contest really, and showcases both men very very well. Seth does eventually get to a point though where he does grab the watch. He picks it back up, which is still in the corner where he placed it earlier. No one had paid any attention to it in this time. Not the referee, not Cody, not Seth. Up until Seth does grab it once more, and it gets to a point where Cody ends up knocking Seth accidentally into the referee, and he gets staggered. Doesn't quite go down, but he just sort of gets stumbled to the point where he's looking away, and he's sort of just checking on himself. I'm all right, sort of thing. And Cody sets up Seth Rollins for a crossroads. So he goes to hit the move. But as he's about to hit, he's in the mid setup process. Seth sort of like punches Cody with the watch, dead on in the face, and he then follows up by hitting a stomp, gets rid of the watch, straight away out of the way, and he then sets up Cody Rhodes for a super stomp or a stomp from the second rope, if you want to call it, and that would be enough for Seth Rollins to get the win. But yeah, I think it was a really great result. It had to be. Seth had everything going into this one. Cody had really nothing to of merit to gain from this. So it was the correct result, in my opinion. There's not even any bias coming in there. It's just that was the right call. So I'm glad they went down that route. It was a much needed win for Seth. His stronghold over Raw with the vision, continues to grow, which is what you want to see. And now this whole, weird dynamic between himself, Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, I'm assuming is going to get put to bed. Is going to get laid to rest, and we can go back to seeing these guys all on the same page, and just dominating the division again. So that seems to be what I think is going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. But this match was great. It had a lot of stuff going on. We had some unique sort of stuff here. Seth Rollins hitting Cody with a coast to coast headbutt, which was quite cool. I haven't seen Seth hit that move before, I don't think. We had a very unique crossroads avalanche style from the top rope from Cody. That was incredible. I thought that was going to be the win, and it probably should have been, to be fair. If you hit a move like that, you'd expect it to win. Maybe Cody's finisher really is just absolutely mudded by this point, which is no problem of himself. It's just no fault of him. But, just the amount of crossroads he hits and the various ways he does so, what does it actually take for him to win the match? I think he has to hit 3 of them in a row now to win matches, which is quite something. But yeah, just generally speaking, this match was a lot of fun to watch. It was really good. It was 2 guys on top of the game, back and forth, a little bit of a story being told with the watch and stuff, and the severity of the situation for Seth Rollins especially. He gets the win. Great moment for him. Yeah, I thought this was a good main event. It didn't have like a standout, like incredible moment afterwards, but I guess just Seth just proving that he can get the job done, and although it was with an asterisk with a watch, he did exactly that. So I gave it an 8 out of 10. Like I said, I thought it was just pretty good, pretty great contest between 2 men who just went out, delivered, put on a good show, and yeah, that was basically all it needed to be. So yeah, I speak quite highly of this one because it was just good. It was really good.
Yeah, the coast to coast was great. I don't think I've seen that from him either. And the avalanche Cody cutter, I thought that was great as well. Or excuse me, crossroads from the top ropes. Yeah, his finisher is definitely up there in terms of lacking ability to finish a match, which is what it should do. And then obviously the avalanche or from the top rope stomp as well. Both these guys clearly bring out all the stops to take down one another. But I am glad you mentioned the mudded views of the crossroads, because I think the men's side especially struggles a lot from this, and that is the amount of finishers they have to put on to win a match, especially when it becomes the main event. They need to cool that down. I think. I know that's probably just an old school opinion of mine, but I think I think they've made it a bit better. Like you kind of see this with the Sami Zayn and the Blue Thunder Bomb. I think you have these moves that are very unique, very cool, and entertaining to watch. But if you never win a match with them, they lose their kind of prestige, if you will. And so the men's side especially is bad about that. And I think I know this is a big match and a lot's on the line. Both of these guys are at the top of their divisions, obviously, but I don't think it's a big deal to have them lose with just 1 or maybe 2 finishers. I don't think we need to bring out 10 finishers every single time. But that's a spiel I won't get into. I will get off my high horse here, so to speak. But as for the match itself, yeah, I thought it was great. The abundance of finishers maybe aside. The only other complaint I had was the watch. I think Seth Rollins, I think, is better served here to just get the clean win. I don't think it's a big deal if Cody loses clean to someone like Seth Rollins. Um, but it feels like we want 2 things. We want to continue to protect Cody, which I think we've done plenty of. Again, I'm a huge Cody guy, but make it realistic. Man, everyone has a bad day, so I don't think a loss kind of hurts Cody's momentum or anything. And the other side of that is that's going to be the asterisk. As we mentioned earlier, everything with division tend to has have an asterisk, but I think Seth just being at the top of his game can get a win over Cody Rhodes. The watch didn't need to be done, and it felt like that was kind of we've obviously that was a talking point, and for all those talking points to get up to it just to be used, eh, I think we could have done without it. I guess is my overall bit, and I'm sure that will come into the story with division and having to have something to needed to get the win over Cody. Just felt like it was a bad necessary, I think. But certainly topical, and I'm sure we'll get it. I'm sure we'll see it get brought up again. But that is division's way. Have to have something to go forward. But yeah, with the match itself, yeah, those two complaints aside, I thought was really good, and obviously the crowd was eating it up. Tons of near finishes to a fault, I might say, but it was a ton of fun. I did give this one an 8 out of 10. Actually, I'm gonna bump it up to 8.5. It was a ton of fun. Just yeah, a couple of critiques aside there. So with that, crown jewel in the books. I think it's safe to say my expectations for this were a little higher than yours, KP. But with that being said, all done now. What gives I think just give us your match of the night and your overall rating for crown jewel and going forward.
Yeah, I didn't have high expectations because recently the PLEs have been subpar and they've been below average and they've been underwhelming. But this one I felt had a bit of a different feel to it. I wasn't particularly keen on the champion versus champion aspect, and I think that Seth and Cody delivered a really good matchup, and Stephanie and Tiff delivered a good matchup. But my match of the night was AJ Styles and John Cena because it was just absolutely incredible. Yeah, you don't see many matches like that. It was a very unique contest. You can judge a match on its technical ability, sure, but in terms of engaging the fans, being fun to watch, just never really missing a beat with the moments throughout the contest. Yeah, I mean that one had everything. So by far my match of the night. Just thoroughly enjoyed it. Had a great watch, and like I said, I was just smiling like an absolute dork from ear to ear for the entirety of it. Just waiting for all the references and the moments of tribute. Yeah, just great stuff. But yeah, just generally throughout the night, it was a pretty consistent show. There wasn't a particularly terrible match, bad match. Like I said, the worst match I called on this one was good. So that's that's good. That's what we want. We don't want to have these standout, bad matches on these PLEs. And this one, just generally speaking, had some really good quality across the board, which doesn't happen very often. So maybe they saw WrestlePalooza reviews and were like, oh, well, we need to set things up. If that's the case, then, keep on going that trajectory. Let's hope that the Survivor Series is equally, as good and consistent. I'm hoping it will be. It's War Games after all, so one of my favorite times of the year. So yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. But yeah, for now, solid show. Definitely was above my expectations. I end up giving it an 8 out of 10 as an average of all my matches put together. It's very rare that I get an overall of 8+. So yeah, there you go. I guess this one does sort of like go up there with one of the better events of the year. I think this one and Evolution, probably my favorite two PLEs this year so far, and that's saying something considering it's got two matches that I didn't really care for going into. I come out, singing its praises. So not too bad at all. How high did you rate this one, Nick?
Yeah, I like the champion versus champion aspect of these events. I know more than you do, but I think you could obviously make the case that in the grand scheme of things, winning those matches typically doesn't mean much, and so. But I would argue that this time, obviously, Seth had tons to fight for, and Vaquer getting the win there just shot her all the way up. But you said it as well. Like even the matches that I rated, the lowest, which on this occasion was 7.5, given to Asuka, Kairi, and Io and Rhea. 7.5 being your worst match is still pretty damn good. As you kind of alluded to, the consistency of this event, just throughout, not having that stinker match that WrestlePalooza very much had, and you know who you are. But yeah, this was just a very consistent, very fun contest throughout, our event throughout, with tons of great contests. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that next PLE. See, I'm not a huge Survivor Series guy, as much as you are. So it'll be interesting to see maybe if we'll flip this dynamic for the next one. Maybe your high expectations will kind of come into play, or maybe my low expectations will come into play very much. I feel like with this one, but overall, I feel like we kind of walk away from this thinking, this was one of the better events of the year. So that's great to see, especially in your case when you don't expect it. So with that, Crown Jewel reactions video is all done here. My overall rating for that is 8.3. So again, kind of what you said, over an 8 mark is always a sign of great things. But with that, reactions all done here. And if you agree with anything, please let us know, or disagree. Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, as that helps us out tremendously. We'll be back with our normal videos here and continuing to work on our WrestleMania series as well. So tons of things going on over here at The Push. And with that, this has been The Push with Nick and KP. And until next time, we'll see you soon. Take care.